Hey there, I'm Elisa Ali. Tonight it's FUV Live with Tori Amos. The latest album from Tori Amos is called Unrepentant Geraldines. It's her 14th full-length album and it conjures up mythological and reflective stories. The songs are beautifully crafted and incorporate classical and pop structures into poetically stirring pieces. Tori Amos recently stopped by Studio A to share some of her music, and WFUV's Kara Manning also got a chance to speak with her about her life and art for this episode of FUV Live.
To me, Tori, Unrepentant Geraldines reminds me a lot of, in many cases, of where you began. There seems to be a bridge back as well as looking forward that sort of possesses this album. Is that true?
Well, I was writing this on the eve of turning 50 over the last few years, and I guess you do look back and collect song structures and sounds, although there were new subjects that I was looking at.
Trouble's Lament, which is a track that feels very sort of stewed in a mystic and a magical place, and talks of devils and dark and light. When you returned or considered this album and the writing of this album, is that it was sort of fascinating to put yourself back in as a child and what you perhaps perceived of being, your family's legacy.
When the songs take over, I don't really control when they grab me. I've tried to explain this, and I don't think I explain it very well.
I think there's an image of you sort of stalking the moors with a notebook and like a long flowing dress and things coming to you and poetically writing them down. I think that people have an idea of Tori Amos writing in as a dramatic a way as possible. But where do you sit and do your writing? Are you somebody who is literally scrawling on napkins?
I'm on napkins. Yeah. In a Toyota truck, in a Jimmy Choo heel, driving across whatever landscape I'm driving and pulling aside to write something down, because as per usual, the muses decide to come when you're not in the best place to write something down. That's what always happens.
Is it about letting go? When you're not pushing yourself in a certain place, that things flow most easily for you?
Sometimes that's true, but sometimes I'll be ready to take the stage somewhere in a country, and there they are. I was just in Paris not long ago, and I was ready to do live radio. And they were coming, those muses. And Johnny, my manager, comes and says, I'm going to have a word with them. Don't they know the schedule? My God. So when they come, whatever I have, I'm usually writing in a book that I'm reading. So I'm reading some book, and in the back, as Tash says, don't give the books away, because those are where a lot of the original songs get written, whether I'm on tour, traveling on a plane. When the thoughts come, they come. And sometimes they only come in 2-bar phrases. So then you have to push yourself on a pilgrimage. You have to go out and hunt them down. But how and where you go hunting, and then what comes back, the song you might think you're hunting isn't the one that reveals itself. So sometimes I have to have an experience that then tells me the rest of the song, what it's trying to say.
I'm always curious because of your background as a pastor's daughter, and your parents were really interesting people, and your mother pushed you a lot into the direction of literature. Do you feel that your religious background has actually been one of the great assets of your life as a songwriter, because you can pull upon that darkness, the lightness, the challenge of what it means to be religious, not be religious?
Well, my dad always said to me, God, what would you have written about if I'd been a dentist?
See, there you go. Exactly.
He has a very good point, because I guess he and his mother were very biblical, every day, reading from the Bible. And my mom, although she is Christian, she would push me into mythology, literature, in order to get a more well-rounded scope of story. And so I think that's just what she had grown up doing. Therefore, when I was 5, she was reading to me Edgar Allan Poe, Emily Dickinson, things like that. And it took me later for friends, people I would meet who would turn me on to things. Baudelaire, Rimbaud, Sylvia Plath. It took time for me to expose myself through, thank goodness, the help of just sometimes people I would meet that would say, you really need to open yourself up to this. So the education even keeps coming today. People will say you need to really be open to this artist or this choreographer or this writer. And that's how I keep expanding. But the roots of my system go back into heavy liturgical discussions between my dad and his mom, and of course escaping all that into these worlds of mythology.
Right. And Trouble's Lament, to me, when I first heard it, made me think of Tennessee Williams for some reason. But can you play that for us today?
Yeah,
that's great. This is Tori Amos from her new album, Unrepentant Geraldines and Trouble's Lament.
Trouble needs a home, girls. Trouble needs a home. She fell out with Satan. Now she's on the run. But I have found her quite straightforward in her contracts and do deals. She warns me when danger is loose behind his wheels. And tears loose behind his wheels. Don't cry, baby. Trouble got evicted from the devil's lair. I wager she got betrayed by her friend Despair. Now the flames from Satan's tongue are charged and licking at her ears. She whispers, hey, ginger dangers, loose behind his wheels. And Satan knows how danger makes you feel. What will be, baby. Don't need to cry. There are no tears in my eyes. If danger wants to find me, I'll let him in. He can find me. Trouble needs a home, girls, a covert abode. From Tucson to Ohio, back through Tobacco Road. And she is armed and will fight for the souls of girls around the world. Standing up to Satan, dancing on Saint Michael's sword. I'm on her side in this brutal war. Don't cry, baby. You don't need to cry. There are no tears in my eyes. If danger wants to find me, I'll let him in. He can find me. Trouble needs a home, girls. Trouble needs a home. Trouble needs a home, girls. Will you give her one? Trouble needs a home. Trouble needs a home.
That's an absolutely beautiful song. And as I said to you, there was something very dramatic about it. It made me think of Tennessee Williams. It made me think of that sort of eerie, other Southern culture where there's a lot of magic and mysticism and whatnot. And I assume that was the driving force behind that song in some ways.
I guess growing up in the South part-time, it gets in your blood. It gets under the skin. The old Johnny Cash songs that I used to hear as a child. Sometimes all these things are orbiting.
Right.
When you're in the midst of writing, and maybe writing happens over a 3-year period, which this record took 3-4 years really to write at different times because I was having other projects.
Well,
involved.
The thing that amazed me is how you were concurrently doing your show, The Light Princess, which debuted at the National Theater with Marianne Elliott directing. And to do that and then be working on an album at the same time, I think would have been an extraordinary workload.
Marianne Elliott put together an incredible creative team, and working with her expanded how I see story and how I approach creativity. What was so thrilling about the whole experience was we were told by the National, it's not commercial theater. We were told, do not dumb this down. Challenge people. Write something that you all feel gets people talking and thinking. And it might make people very uncomfortable. It isn't saying, well, let's make this group of people feel safe and this group of people. It's no, we're going to tell a story about a girl and a boy, teenagers, both of them, that are confronting very powerful fathers. And sometimes these confrontations, they have to happen. And when you're sitting there watching people squirm in their seats, you think, yes, we did our job.
Well, you sort of did that with when you first came, to prominence with Little Earthquakes and with Under the Pink. You made people squirm who weren't used to being someone who was so candid and frank lyrically. And I think that was one of your outstanding strengths and why you broke through in such a big way, because of the fact that you addressed things that people had not addressed before.
Well, let's hope the Light Princess makes it here to the States, and then you can see people squirming again.
Well, given the rigor and exhaustion of working on musical theater, because it is exhausting, do you see it as something that you were challenged by and you'd like to take it on again?
Well, Sam has said to me, come on, will we do this again? And I said, oh, you bet your boots. I'm motivated by it. It is very different than writing an album, and yet, if you go back to the idea that you're telling a story. On Unrepentant Geraldines, we're telling a story. The difference is in musical theater, where that was 80% sung. So the plot is moving through the music and the lyric. Whereas in this album, each song is almost more like a painting. And you can walk into the frame inside that painting, and you live in it, and you can come out of it. And these paintings can live and exist completely on their own. They don't need to link up.
The thing that I was struck by is that you spoke frequently of Paul Cézanne as being someone who inspired you in sort of approaching a lot of these songs. And the thing about Cézanne is he's somebody who was not accepted. He endured a lot of criticism. He was an outsider. And then he went on to influence so many young artists he inspired with his work, but it wasn't an easy road for him. He wasn't somebody who, was immediately acclaimed. Did you find that, in addition to the visual sumptuousness of his work, that you also related to him on a personal level?
When I would read some of the things he said about going to the Louvre and looking at certain masters, and yes, he could acknowledge their technique. However, when he would look at other masters, he would walk away feeling as if he had the power to create. And he wanted to be that kind of painter, that he would inspire people to go and create for themselves. That's something that really spoke to me, because as a creator, you're always, let's face it, creativity is a force. It's not malevolent or benevolent. It's an energy. And we as artists, when we grab hold of that, then we start sculpting it into what is our intention, what is our damage, what do we want to do with it. And all these things, sometimes it's unconscious. We don't always know as artists what's driving us. We think we might know what's driving us, but until you look back at the art you're creating, you don't always know when you're in the thick of it.
And one of the most beautiful songs on this album is Promise, which just, when I first heard it, I had to repeat it about 7 times in a row because it was just so beautiful. And listening to you and your daughter sing to each other or duet together on that track is absolutely beautiful. How did that come about? Did she want to work with you on something, or did you ask her, or did you co-write that song together?
I asked her, and she and I spent a lot of time talking about what we wanted to say. She talked to me about relationships with daughters and their mothers that can be good, that she has seen, and relationships that aren't so good. So we started to talk about, well, what happens to make it not so good? And it was about listening on both sides, being able to learn from each other, that just because you're the mother and you think you might know the answer, is it always the right thing to tell the answer, or does the daughter have to discover it? These were discussions, because then, of course, the mom and me would say, yeah, but when does the mom say, all right, I'm stepping in now because this could be a threatening situation? You can discover as much as you want if it's about your hemline,
right,
or the outfit for the day. But when it starts getting a bit more threatening. So we were talking about conversations, and sometimes can a mom and daughter not even hear each other? You don't even get so far as a conversation before the walls come up.
Right.
So we were trying to make promises to each other.
You live part of the time in Cornwall, and one song that you're going to do today, which is from The Beekeeper, is Jamaica Inn, which is actually a hotel in Cornwall. And you're going to do that for us today.
I am.
This is Tori Amos on WFUV.
Can you patch my jeans, Peggy Ann? Just a little stitch to mend the hole he has torn, if you can. Maybe I got too set in my ways. He said she reminds him of May, when we first met in those early days. The sexiest thing is trust. I wake up to find the pirates have gone, tying up along your coast. How was I to know? The pirates have come between Rebecca's, beneath your firmaments. I have worshipped in the Jamaica Inn, in the Jamaica Inn. With the gales my little boat was tossed. How was I to know that you'd send her with a lantern to bring me in? Are you positive this is a friend? The captain grimaced, those are cliffs of rock ahead, if I'm not mistaken. The sexiest thing is trust. I wake up to find the pirates have come, tying up along your coast. How was I to know? The pirates have come between Rebecca's, beneath your firmaments. I have worshipped the Jamaica, in the Jamaica.
That was absolutely beautiful. Tori Amos and Jamaica Inn from The Beekeeper from 2005. Looking back over 20 years, how do you feel you've altered or changed as a vocalist?
Sometimes you go through different phases with your vocal instrument. I've experimented a lot over the years. And with this record, there is a cohesive sound on the vocals. Perhaps that came from the last 5 years of working with other vocalists.
Is it odd for you when you see a lot of young artists who sort of assume, like, for example, recently, comment was made when Taylor Swift performed that there was something very Tori Amos about her performance, or you look at young artists like Regina Spektor and people who are following in your footsteps, that in a way, when you first started making music, people looked at Kate Bush and said, well, Tori's very much similar to Kate Bush. Do you find it very odd when you now look at artists who are very connected to you?
I think it's wonderful. There's an interconnectivity that you get from other artists without it always being obvious. There's a bloodline that seems to happen. And I love being part of a continuum.
You came up in the 90s when it was a really strong time for women who were singer-songwriters and who were who did everything. I mean, you had everyone from Liz Phair to TLC. You had Lilith Fair. There was just a might and a power and a drive, and women weren't sexualized in the same way that they are now. And I'm wondering what that difference was. How do you perceive, why was it different in the 90s than it is today?
You had a lot of songwriters at the time that had record deals, and it just wasn't really accepted within the community to be overtly sexual. It wasn't cool.
Are you dismayed by the shift? I mean, it seems more US than UK.
Nothing surprises me.
Yeah.
Really, if I'm being honest with you, because I think artists have to decide how they want to express themselves, and some are more overtly sexual than others, and some are more entertainers than they are writers. I think usually a lot of the writers are not the ones that you're seeing as much overt sexuality. Right. But that doesn't mean there isn't sexuality. It's just, it's what people are comfortable with.
Right. Do you constantly listen to new music? Are you very aware of other people out there?
I think Tash, having a teenager, keeps you aware in ways that maybe you're not aware when you leave that teenage 20-something frame. But with a teenager, she's got both continents going. So she knows what's happening in the States and what's happening in the UK. And that's really opened to me a lot. So she shares a lot of things with me. She's a big YouTuber fan. So she exposes me to things I'd never be exposed to.
Given the fact that there's so many great artists who are now in their 40s and their 50s, and like, you know, on the day that we're speaking, I think Kim Gordon just turned 61. I mean, there's a whole new renaissance now of women who are older and making relevant rock music, relevant pop music. Do you think that there's still an issue? Do you still think that there's a chauvinism that exists?
I would say that if you check factually, there are probably more men 50 and up that are getting those frontline record contracts than the women. So in order to carve out our space, we have to grab it with both hands.
Right.
There are a lot of talented women out there that are 50 and up that have something to say, something very important to say. So you might ask me, well, why aren't they getting signed as much as the men? And I would ask you, is it also what the culture wants? So it's about creating a demand for this wisdom, that this wisdom is something that people think, yeah, I want this in my life. There's something I want from these women that I can't get anywhere else, because experience is experience. You can't just have that. You can't go buy it at Barney's. It doesn't work like that.
And there's a confidence to Unrepentant Geraldines that you could not have written with that kind of knowledge or breadth or confidence 20 years ago. It now exists within this album.
I'm glad you feel that.
Yay! The thing is another song that you're going to do today is Selkie, which is one of my favorites on the record, and also there's such a rich folklore behind the myth of the Selkie. Can you talk about it? It's very much based in the Orkney Islands and Faroe Islands and whatever else, but can you tell us a bit about that?
The idea that the seal families, male and female, Selkies can be male as well as female, and they can have a human family as well as a seal family. In mythology, sometimes somebody would steal the seal skin and hide it so the Selkie couldn't go back to their seal family. And then when the Selkie would find their seal skin, then they might leave the human and never come back. So I wanted to tell a story of a female Selkie who had realized that the love of her life was this being that was alone now. Whether you see him as a human or a Selkie is really up to you.
Well, it's a beautiful song, and we're going to hear it now. This is Tori Amos on WFUV.
Selkie unzips her skin, finally determined. Through a window in the dark, there he sits all alone. I've been waiting the love of my life to find. He's been waiting on his Selkie to come back. He said, I know these shoes are not like yours, but will you make your home in my arms? Selkie battle tight and wave, just to gaze upon his face, hiding behind rocks to learn if he found a new love. Lorelei sings the song for lovers who were torn apart, then left broken hearted. Lorelei hears the cry of lovers that the sea of fate has separated. Selkie puts her hand in his. He knows the gift she gives. There inside his cabinet, folded safe, her seal skin. I've been waiting on the love of my life to find. He's been waiting on his Selkie to come back. He said, I know these shoes are not like yours, but will you make your home in my
Thank you so much. I'm Kara Manning. I'm here with Tori Amos, who is talking about her absolutely beautiful new record, Unrepentant Geraldines. And I have to, of course, Geraldine, this has to do with a painting, or what? Can you explain the title to me a bit?
If we really get down to the root, Geraldine is any woman. It's all of us, where at a certain point in our lives, we have to stand by who we are and what we believe in. At a certain point in your life, you have to take a stand and say, this is who I am and what I believe in. And that's the unrepentant side. As an artist, you must write about and sing about and express yourself from a place of, this is what I believe in. So that's really what the essence of that saying is. And Geraldine was a woman. There was a story written about her in the mid-1800s, an Irish woman. And this drawing ended up in the Irish house. Somehow it got there, and I did not put it there, okay? So I was looking at it, and she was praying up to Mother Mary, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, Geraldine, I know what you're thinking about, because I just know that look. And it was very penitent, and I was also thinking about how women had to be apologetic for some of the things that they had thought about or think about now. Before they even do it, they're just even thinking about it.
I would assume that everybody has regrets. Everybody wishes they had done certain things differently. But is there something that you did in your life that you know you did right and you feel grateful that you figured it out?
I married the right man.
Your husband, Mark.
Yes, I did. I really did. My girlfriends tell me that all the time. There's some great men I've met in my life, wonderful men. And I'd like to think that they've ended up with the right people. But I can look at you and say, I married somebody that was very loving and supportive, romantic, but strong. And he's also taught me about love. We worked together. We've been working together since 94. We met on Tori. He's a sound engineer, and he was one of the engineers on this record. So we have we have a life on the road as a family, and Tash, our daughter's been a part of that. And having a family, and that's the center of my life, my family. It's little but mighty.
Well, as crossing the threshold to 50, you seem to be someone who is having everything going right. I mean, if anyone is turning 50, this is the way you would want to do it, to be like you, Tori Amos.
Well, I have to tell you, I love being 50. There were times in my 40s when I would struggle with the idea. And yet, through the wisdom of all kinds of people, but particularly women of all ages, from 85 on down, getting me to realize that you begin to create an energy around yourself with your creations, your writings, your thoughts. And there has to be forgiveness too, a forgiveness of things. We didn't talk about the things that I do regret, things that you've done in your life, things you've said, things that you've done, that you think, if I could go back in time, would I have done that? Well, of course not. But that's what this amazing walk is about. And that's why when you get to 50, there is something to look forward to. I promise you. Now, at 49, you might not be feeling it. I was not feeling it at 49. But something happened. Something miraculous happened, which is I realized there is an opportunity to create. And I need to have gratitude, to be grateful. And that to have love in my life, well, I have to give love back. And so what I want to do is if people come to the shows or hear the record, that inspires them to go do something for themselves.
Well, you are embarking on a world tour, and I think you're going to be inspiring a lot of people along the way.
Well, come see me.
I am,
come
absolutely. Tori Amos, what a delight to meet you. Your new album is Unrepentant Geraldines, and it's extraordinary, and good luck on tour.
Thanks, Kara.
All right, thank you.
Tori Amos, our guest on tonight's FUV Live. Her new album, Unrepentant Geraldines, is out now. You can listen and watch tonight's show along with many other exclusive conversations and performances in the FUV Vault at WFUV.org. This session was engineered by Jim O'Hara and produced by me, Elisa Ali. Thanks so much for listening. This is 90.7 WFUV in New York.